if
So
you
we'll
want to
call
call
the
it.
meeting to order at 6:05. And we have a quorum with 3 of our 5 members. And this is an emergency meeting to vote on the contract, the final contract negotiation.
Yeah, so probably we could do it one of two ways. Somebody could make a motion to ratify the contract and then we could have discussion, or we could just, Scott and I could just fill you in on the salient points and then we can go from there. Which do you prefer?
I'll make a motion.
All right, good. Scott moves.
I'll make a motion that the Heartland District Board vote to ratify the tentative agreement with the teachers associations from across WSCSU for the fiscal years in school.
21 to 24.
Okay, well, speaking fiscal years 22, 23, and 24.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
School year 21 through spring of 24.
I second.
Beth, you want to second it? Okay,
Awesome.
good.
So now we'll open it up to discussion.
Yeah. And Scott, I don't know if you want me to summarize or you want to talk a little bit about what we did. Which would you prefer?
I think you should summarize because you have the bullet points
Yeah.
more clearly.
So the biggest changes were with the salary schedule and benefits, not health benefits necessarily, but annuity benefits. With the salary schedule, when we started out, we realized that our current salary schedule was not sustainable because we had 27 steps, and that 27th step ended up on that far right corner, close to $90,000, 88 or 89,000. And if we had given any increase at all, it would have changed that to like anywhere from $92,000 to $95,000. And again, we had a fair number of people ready to move into those columns. And then we had this gray area on the schedule, which was created when we merged all 4 districts, actually back then, into a single salary schedule. And we had to get people placed in the gray for initial placement that were already a little higher than we had negotiated. So we had a bunch of people in that gray, and those were the same people that were marching through to, 90, 95, 90 some $1,000, which again, you want to pay your teachers, but for 184 days worth of work, you have to have it be sustainable or it just won't work. So what we did is we agreed, we actually upped the offer in terms of new money that we would offer in trade for lopping off some of those bottom steps. So what we did is come up with a 3-year deal of 3.6 this year. We're in the current year that this will impact, and then 3.7 new money the second year, and 3.7 new money the third year. And that new money translates to a step, basically because it's inclusive of a step, translates to a step and about another anywhere from 1.1 to 1.5% increase on top of that step. So, cost of living, when we got to the table for the last mediation, was clearly, if you've been paying attention to the news, it was going up. So there was a strong sense that we wanted to make sure that A, we got a 3-year deal, and B, the deal was sustainable. And also it did provide a fair and living wage to our teachers. So what we're going to have now is we're going to have a base that's going to exceed probably 40. It'll be right around 42, maybe a little higher, very competitive base. And then it will go into the second and third years, capped though at, if you go to that far right-hand corner, it'll cap out at about $88,000. So we think that that's sustainable over time, and that should work. The other thing we were able, and I'll answer questions at the end, or Scott can. The other thing we put to bed once and for all, which will be music to the ears of anybody from Heartland, is the annuity, right? So what we did with the annuity, because it was inequitable, we had a group of teachers that were receiving an annuity, and then no other teacher in the SU could get that annuity. And so that was a problem. So what we did is we lowered the annuity rate to, instead of a dollar for dollar, to 50 cents on the dollar, and also came down from a 2% match on the gross on your gross salary to a 1% match. So if you're making $60,000, then you contribute $1,200 to get the $600 cap that we have on our annuity, essentially. And the only caveat, and this was obvious, that anybody that was already in the 2% annuity plan, and there are probably still about 20 teachers from Heartland that are in that plan, maybe less now with the retirements that we've had over the last couple of years. But anybody that's in that 2% match at the $1 to $1 range will keep that. So we grandfathered those people in, but now everybody in the SU has access to a small, but I guess you could consider generous annuity. So that was that was good news. And I don't think we'll ever have to, well, they'll come back with wanting to up that annuity over time, but we won't ever have to worry about that inequity again. And we also, just as an aside, with the support staff, we're thinking about, offering them a similar kind of annuity. And Bill found this obscure law in federal, or an obscure bill in the federal law that says the other thing that can happen is you can, if this federal piece of legislation passes, you can defray the annuity expense on the part of the district. The employer contribution can be put towards student loans. So we also thought that would be enticing for sometimes a new teacher's not thinking, they probably should, but they're not thinking about an annuity at 23. But I bet they're thinking about deferring, about getting their loans paid off. So, we could start putting, anywhere from $400 to $600 to $800 toward their loans, and I'm sure they would not be opposed to that. All of the other changes, quite frankly, were pretty. They were more, to be honest with you, grammar and some. For example, the contract used to refer to 4 districts. We changed it to 3 districts, and then there were a couple of spelling errors. There was, but I think to be honest with you, Scott, unless you can think of anything, I think that's what I've got on my list. They're really, believe it or not, for all of, we were at this for 6 months, and we had 2 mediations. But to be honest with you, we spent the first probably 4 sessions of negotiations just on trying to get them to understand a different approach to the salary schedule. And we almost got there. And again, this was a good compromise, but we didn't get as far as we really wanted to get on changing up that salary schedule. Maybe in 2 or 3 years we'll be able to do that again. But I think it's a fair deal. I think it's within what we budgeted for this year, and it's within what we had budgeted for next year. I think Ed put in a 3.5 or 3.6, so it would only be off by a 0.01% or 0.1%. And he's still got time to change that, which he'll do, before we go to the town with our vote. So I think essentially it was a lot of work, but I think it was a good deal. Scott, did you want to make any comments?
Thank you. You did a great job. The only clarification, just if in case anybody did tune into this, and I think Nikki and Beth have heard this enough times, but the annuity benefit that's going to be offered, so there's currently one kind of animal offered in Heartland, and now we've proposed in this proposed agreement that takes that there's a SU wide annuity match that's a little bit different, but the key word there is match. And so the whole 403B program that David was describing it's like the public employees version of 401k, and it's already available, and any employee in the district can take advantage of that themselves. It's just that us being the district unless you're in Heartland, you don't get an employer match. So that's just the only thing I was going to say, David. I mean,
Mhm.
you just made it sound like we were offering it and it wasn't there, but it is there.
It's always been there, yeah.
Yeah, it's there, and
No employer match though.
yeah. So I think it is a significant amount of extra earning ability, I guess you might say, that is being extended. Of course, the employee has to be able to put something into that fund in order to be matched. So it is a carrot, but I think they liked it. So
It worked.
yeah.
So you were saying the max though per year is $600 that they can get?
Well, the max is
1% of their salary.
How much? I'm sorry, 1%?
1%. And David clarified, it's a half. We match 50 cents on the dollar. So if they were able to put in $100, we will offer them $50, and then the cap in their work year is 1% of their salary. Is that right, David?
Yeah. So for most employees, it will never get, our contribution will never get, much above 800. That would be sort of the top of, we've got some people in the 80s, but they also have to put, 1,600 in to get that 800. But it'll be interesting to see how many people take advantage of it. I think there will be some. And the truth is, it'll be because right now, the only districts in our region that have an employer match are Hartford and us. So that's going to make us competitive with, I think with Lebanon, Springfield, Claremont. I think we'll be competitive. And that's what we want to do. We want to secure good teachers and keep good teachers. And I have noticed a difference after the last two negotiations that we get more applications, we get more people signing on the dotted line,
And that's on top of like the regular Vermont retirement.
That's right.
Yes.
Teacher
It's on
retirement.
top of it. Yep. Yeah.
Right.
And the Vermont retirement's not terrible, but it's not great, but it's decent. Yeah. So a teacher now has access to the 403B annuity, which they always had access to, like Scott said. They've got teacher retirement, right? And they all pay into Social Security. So if they're thinking about their future, they should have a pretty good run at it if they start early and are wise with how they invest.
Yeah,
So,
Rivendell is doing 3%.
are they doing a 3% annuity
And
match?
I don't know. Yeah, and I don't know if it's just because I'm a district employee.
Yeah, it might be.
But that might be the difference.
They might have had some flexibility with you. Yeah, that's a possibility, because we used to have a couple of central office or district or SU employees that had annuities at a pretty significant match. Ed Connors was one. Jean Marie Oakman was another one. She was at Weathersfield.
Yeah.
But
I can't go into the Vermont teacher retirement. That's why I think too, because
I bet that's why they did that.
Because it's a non-certified position.
I bet that's why they did that. Yeah. And you're going to try to get your provisional license though, right, Beth?
Yeah, I'm going to first start my job there and then see what they say.
Yeah. Well, like you and I
think it'd
talked
be
about,
worth it.
that's going to make you even more marketable in the end, depending on what you want to do with it. What do I want to be when I grow up, right? So it'll be kind of,
Yeah, I don't know.
who knows, right? But I think that's it. I think, we could probably just call for a vote, Nikki, and we probably should do it by, we should probably do it by roll call.
Just a quick clarification. So you were saying when it comes to these new steps, they're like 3.5% increases just for steps.
Yeah, well,
Right.
the step is about 2 to 2.5, and then we added another one. All the rest of that money goes to the base, which indexed down to all those other steps. So people will get somewhere 3.6% new money probably results in a raise of somewhere between 3% and 4%, depending on where you are on the schedule.
And that doesn't put into factor of like if next year we decide to do a cost of living raise or something like that on top of it, or is that already factored?
Yeah, it's already factored, and we're locked into
That one, whatever extra
yeah
percent.
for the next 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
It's 3 years without negotiation.
Yeah,
Yeehaw!
well, actually, technically it's 2 because
Yeah.
the first year is this
We're
year.
basically through the first. Yeah.
I'll take it. All I know is Scott and I looked at each other and said, "This might be the last contract we have to negotiate." So
I think Beth brings up something that's a good thing to focus on just quickly, in that so school boards across the state have been for a long time attempting to communicate with employees about the whole basket of wages and benefits that is working for the district, and to take that all into account. And so I think it's never been that hard, honestly, with the teachers in this district. We've talked about that a lot, and there's not pushback in that respect. Everybody understands that there's a number of good things that you get for working in the school district, like payment for UVM credits for continuing education, for instance, or paid days off, that sort of thing. So, I mean, it was just good that I felt good about getting the agreement written down in terms of 3.6 or 3.7 total new monies, and not having it come across the difference there being, we're not forgetting the step and calling it the 1.5% increase, wage increase. We're calling it 3.6 or 7 new monies.
I like that, Scott.
Yeah. So it's just everybody's accepting that language, or we're hoping that, and so.
yeah.
And David, one of my questions to you is: has everybody else voted at this point?
Yeah, you're the last board to ratify. And
Okay.
then, and the associations, I think we're going to meet today, and a couple of them are meeting today, and a couple of them meeting tomorrow. So,
Okay. So let's get our job done.
yeah, let's do it.
So can you read the motion back to me, or so we can just hear it
Yeah,
again?
so Scott moved to ratify the teacher master agreement for school years 2021-22, 22-23, and 23-24 as described by the committee.
Okay. So I'm going to do a roll call vote.
Who seconded? Beth, you seconded? Yeah, I think
Beth
you did.
seconded, and I
Okay.
listened.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll do a roll call vote. So we'll start with Beth.
I say aye.
Okay, Scott.
Aye.
Nikki. Aye. Okay, that was it. So we'll fill in the other 2 board members that we're missing tonight.
Yeah. We will at our next meeting, and we don't have anything else till after the holiday, really, right?
I think so. And then
Yeah.
we got to scramble.
Yeah. When is the next meeting?
I think we set it for, hold on, I just was looking at that the other day. I think Heartland settled on January 4th, right when we get back. Yeah, which will be good. Then we can fill them in and sort of digest our holidays and all of that good stuff. But if I don't see everybody, have a great holiday season.
Yeah. Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah. Happy holidays. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
I know.
Yeah. Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy
Yeah,
holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
So who wants to move to adjourn? Anybody
Yeah.
here? Nikki,
I
you
can
want it?
move to adjourn.
Oh, Beth will do it. All right.
I can second it, and then we
Okay.
can all vote. Okay, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
And I'll type up some minutes for Lori and get them to
Okay.
her. It'll
Thanks
be
a lot,
simple.
David.
All right. Thanks. Have a
Thank you,
great
Beth,
night, everybody.
Nikki,
Have a good
David.
night.
Take care,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.
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 Night.